Okay, so we're live from Ayers Greenhouses in Bad Axe. With Memorial Weekend coming up, we know a lot of people are going to be planting planters and planting flowers. So we thought we'd give you a few tips and show you how we plant our planters. So Penny's going to show you the whole process here.
So one of the most important things is to first ask yourself in where you're going to put the planter, how it's going to be seen, from what side it's going to be seen, if you see it from all sides, if you just see the front of it, because it can make a difference in how you decide to plant your planter. Also, another thing to take into consideration when you select your plants for your planter is how much sun it's going to be getting. Does it only get morning sun? Then you can pick some plants that like a little shadier area, or some of them that are part sun. If it gets the hot day sun at the end of the day, you're going to want just sun-loving plants there, because otherwise they won't do well. So you want to kind of pay attention to how much light these are going to get where you have them, so that you pick the right kind of plants so that they'll be the most successful. So when we start out doing a planter, first of all, when we plant plants for people, and when we plant ours to sell, we always use fresh soil, because unlike the ground, your plants are not going to be drawing nourishment from deep down inside the ground. It's only going to be from that dirt that's inside the pot. And if you've been using that dirt for a year or two or three, it's got to have used up most of its nutrients, and it's all rooty inside of there, really. And so if you're going to spend the money on all those nice new plants, it's good to just put that little extra in and get some new soil. So when you're putting your soil in, if there's any clumps, just break it up as you're putting it in so that it's nice and fluffy and workable. We like to use the Bacto High Density Professional Mix. It's just a really nice blend. It holds the moisture well, but is lightweight enough so that the plants really take off and just grow quickly in it. So we've had really good success with this soil. We've been using the same exact soil for years now, and it's the only thing that we'll plant in here at the greenhouse. We do have other options available if you don't want the professional mix, but this is just what we recommend the best. So when I personally plant a planter, I like to add some time-release fertilizer, because if you're like me and you get busy in the summertime, you just don't always remember to add that fertilizer in the water every so often during the week to give them their nutrients. So if you put a time-release fertilizer in with it, most time-release fertilizers will last 3 to 4 months. So that way your plants are going to get a constant feed throughout the summer. So if you forget to give them that liquid fertilizer, it won't matter as much, because they're going to get a little bit all the time. And with that, you can still give them like some of the liquid fertilizer, like once a week, or to give it a boost if you want to, but at least then it's going to be getting some constant feed. So when we do ours here, we always use the time release. So I fill it not quite full, put some time release in, and then I like to mix it around, because I like to get it in closer to where the roots of the plant are going to be and not up on the top. And then I finish filling it up most of the way. Everybody plants a little bit different, but this is just how I like to do it. And then I give myself a little bit of room to move here. So this first one that I'm going to plant is going to be a shade combination. I've chosen an irisin. This also comes, it's also nicknamed a bloodleaf, which makes more sense in the other version of this, which is kind of a reddish color. But this is a variegated one, which is really pretty. Sometimes tags can be deceiving a little bit, and so just from experience, I have found that the irisin grows very, very well in the shade, even though if you look at this tag, they're always labeled for sun. But just from my own personal experience, they get very large in the shade, and they do excellent in the shade. So I do recommend this with shade plantings for people. So if you're going to plant, where you're going to see it only from the front, then a lot of times it's best to put your plants that are taller, that are going to get larger, in the back. So if I was going to have this up against a building, I would plant this in the back, and then I would place it in the fill from all sides, which is how we kind of plant most of our planters when we're selling them here to customers. We plant it as if you're going to see it from all sides. So then I put the taller thing in the middle, because then you're going to see it from all ways, okay? So before I put this in the dirt, typically when something is inside of a pot, the roots begin to kind of get root bound. This one is not so bad right now, but others you'll see are more so. And the roots tend to form on the outside edge of the plant, kind of dirt ball here, okay? And so it's good to loosen that up a little bit by massaging it a little bit. See if I just kind of gently do this with my fingers, see how it's starting to kind of break apart here? I'm not damaging those roots. I'm just kind of feeling around, because typically the dirt is in the center and the roots are going around the outside. So if you just take your finger even in the middle a little bit and just kind of massage it a little bit and let it loosen up, you can see how those roots are kind of coming loose there. So that when I plant this in here, it's going to just take off, the roots are, and go right into the new soil. So I'm going to create my hole, I'm going to put it in there, kind of level it in there, tuck it in, get that in the center. Now, when you're planting your plants, you always want to make sure that you clean them as you go. So if there's any leaves that need to be taken off of them, you're going to want to deadhead it while you're doing it. So I'm just going to get rid of some of these that I feel need to come off. Now this is a shade planter, so I am planting begonias. This particular one, though, can go in the sun or the shade. Now, I usually look at the plant when I'm planting it to see its shape. How is it shaped also? Because sometimes how you place it in the pot, depending on its shape, will make a difference in how it looks when you get it planted. As it gets growing, it's not as much of a big of a deal, because it'll kind of grow wherever there's open space and it'll adjust. But if you want it to look really nice when you first plant it, it's best to kind of look at the shape and see how it's naturally falling and kind of adjust how you're going to plant it. So I'm going to loosen these roots up a little bit, not too much, because the begonias really aren't a very rooty type of a plant there. So I'm going to get my hole nice and deep here, and then I'm going to slide that in there, put the soil around it, and tuck that in there. Now I'm going to put the same thing on the other side, just because I like to have my stuff planted symmetrically. Some people like to have it asymmetrically. They like to have something different in all different sides of the planter. There's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way. It's just what a person prefers. But the way my brain thinks is to have it look the same on one side as it does the other. So I'm going to put one on the other side of this as well. Okay? And so to me, this plant is looking like it's elongated this way. So I wanted to kind of cover more of the soil and more of the plant. So instead of putting it this way, I'm going to put it this way in the pot, so it's kind of covering more of the inside of it. That's what I was talking about as far as the shape of it. And I'm going to turn it this way just so I can see the flowers right off the bat, because they're tending to want to go on this side. So that way it's going to be visible right away. Again, that just gives you a nicer look right off the bat, so they'll look kind of more finished off. I guess we just get used to doing that in the greenhouse from planting things that we're going to sell immediately. We plant it in a way where we try to make it look nice right away. So there, I have my medium height stuff planted. Next, I'm going to plant some creeping Jenny. Again, this is another one of those little tag things where it says it likes full sun, but it's one of the best finds I've ever seen for shade. So it grows fantastic in the shade. So I like to put it in a lot of my shade planting arrangements. It just stays a beautiful green, lime green color the whole time that it's in there. Sometimes actually, if it's in too much sun, it actually will get a little bit more bleached looking. It'll grow well, but it looks a little bleached. And again, I'm just taking out some of these leaves that are discolored here that kind of just from being in the pot got a little bit of of mold there from being in the pot. So you just clean it up as you're getting your planter done. You want it to look nice right off the bat. We don't want to have any like dead leaves or flowers on it when we're putting it in there. So we would just want to get rid of that. So you clean it up as you do it before you put the stuff in. All right, again, I want to do something with these roots here. They're kind of like bound up here on the bottom. So I'm just going to let my finger kind of go in there, feel in there a little bit, okay, wiggle it around in there. And I'm just going to start massaging those roots on the side and just see how they're popping down like that and they're loosening up here. That's just going to allow that plant to just take off faster, okay? Because those roots are just going to be loose then to go where they need to go in there. So I'm going to get my hole dug in here. We're going to plop this in here. Push it down a little bit. Tuck that soil back in around there. Now here's the part where we want to kind of arrange the stuff. I don't want to just leave it in a big plop like that, okay? If I'm doing it, I want it to kind of look nice when I get done right off the bat. Again, it'll find its way if you left it in a clump, but there's ways you can kind of let the different legs of it, so to speak, kind of flop down in the way that's going to look nice. If I see that something looks like it's kind of out of place, your scissors are your friend. Don't ever be afraid to trim things, okay? You're not going to kill the plant. Actually, it helps make it bushier when you trim some of the leggy stuff off. So I'm not liking how this one looks here. I don't need it in the arrangement. I got plenty of plant here. I'm going to go back to a previous growth here. I'm going to snip it off there and just get rid of it. To me, these look a little bit too long here for this arrangement right now. I'm going to go back to previous growth here under these leaves. I'm going to snip it. You can't even see that I did it. Same thing here. Going to find some previous growth here. Back to some leaves here. I'm going to cut it right in there, tucked in there. And so now it's nice and even kind of all the way around. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing on the other side, because again, this is a planter that we're expecting to be seen from both sides. And since I have my obsession of having to have it look the same on both sides, I'm going to plant one on the other side too. Again, I'm going to take my finger, I'm going to loosen that up quick. And I'm going to tuck this in here, because I've already made my hole. And I'm going to take the dirt, I'm going to put it around so that the main part of that root and dirt ball there is kind of covered with just a little bit of fresh dirt. So nothing is exposed, no roots are exposed. We're going to arrange this. We're going to see how it looks. We're going to see if we like it. And then if we look at it, we think, oh, look at these crazy ones down here. That's a little bit out of control. So let's get rid of that, okay? We're going to come over here. We're going to get rid of that one. And it also kind of makes the whole plant kind of spring up when you do that a little bit, when you get rid of those real long, kind of scraggly ones. And it just makes it look nicer and fuller. Mm-hmm. So we're just getting rid of a few of those. So now we could leave that just the way that it is, but I want to show you something else that I really like to use to plant in shade planters. This is called a polka dot plant. We have it in the white version, we have it in a rosy pink color, and we have it in the red color. When you take one of these and you put it in next to other foliage, look how it pops. It just adds different texture to the arrangement. It does not get a flower. I'm just going to show you each one of these colors mixed up here next to this. See how that just really just draws your attention and adds something to the arrangement when you see it in there. And the one we're actually going to choose to use for this one, a little bit subtler, it's this white one, okay? So what I'm going to do is just where these little gaps are, where the soil is, because these don't get very big, I'm going to just, again, just lightly loosen this up a little bit too, so it has its loose roots. I'm going to tuck this into these little holes, these little spots here that right now are bare dirt. Now these wouldn't have to go in here. I've got enough in here that will fill this pot without these. But it's just going to add a little something, especially before everything else gets growing. And then it just adds that, like I said, that extra little texture or pop of something in there as part of that arrangement. And I've grown to really love these plants. I think sometimes people don't know what they do when they see them early on when they're little in the greenhouse. That's why I kind of wanted to highlight it a little bit, because they just really are nice little filler plants to go in with things. We're gonna tuck this in here. We're gonna get just a little handful of dirt. I like to grab just tiny handfuls, and then I can just kind of tuck it around there, level it out, make sure that it's in there nice. And we're gonna put one over here in this corner too. Because, yeah, like I said, my brain likes to be even. So, gonna loosen that root up. Gonna tuck it in here. I'm gonna add just a little touch of dirt again, just around that, so that flatten it out. Get those leaves back up above the dirt there. A little bit more on that side. There we go. Let that fall back down on there. There. And right now I've got a little bit of dirt on here. What works well is if you got a watering can, you just take a little bit of water and sprinkle it over those leaves. It makes that dirt fall right off of there. And it should be good to go. And it's got time-release fertilizer in it for the whole season. Then in the greenhouse, I like to keep the tags for the customer. So I always put one of each one of whatever we've put in there, so that they know what's in there. Might be a good idea for you to do that too, because sometimes we'll have people come in and they'll say, you know, I got this plant last year and it really grew well, but I can't remember what it was. Well, if you save a tag, if you've got it stuck in somewhere, then you'll know what you've got next year if you liked it and you want to duplicate it. Because, you know, sometimes we think we're going to remember what it was, but we just don't the next year, because there's so many different flowers and so many different plants. So just a good idea to save it and tuck it in somewhere, or even if you keep it in a little bag in your house or something, at least then you can refer back to it and say, oh yeah, that's what it was. So we've got this one done. Now I'm going to do a sun one for you. Add some soil in here. Just going to break it up as I go. And again, you're going to want to think how it's going to work best for you. If you need it to have your tall stuff towards the back, it makes a difference of how many of each size plant you're going to get. All right, I've got it almost full, but I want to get some of my fertilizer in there before I add any more. So I'm going to dump that in there. I'm going to mix that all up inside of there. I'm going to finish it off almost to the top, but not quite. Give myself a little room to move the dirt around without having it fall all outside of the pot. Can't really plant without getting a little bit messy, but I try to do the best I can without getting it everywhere. Now this plant that I'm going to plant in here is Agara. It is actually a perennial in a zone just a little bit south of us here, but it's still a little bit tender for this area. So other parts of lower Michigan or into Ohio and Indiana, that area probably would come back, but it's kind of iffy for around here. But nice tall plant. Again, we could plant it in the back if we wanted to. If we were going to see it from the back. Only from the front, and then you'd put your other stuff here and something trailing maybe in the front, or you could have everything all upright. That's what's neat about doing a planter. It's your own creation. There's not really a right or wrong thing to put in there. You can make it be whatever you want it to be. So you're just limited to your own imagination, basically. But again, I'm going to plant this one from the center out, okay? So we're going to loosen up these roots again. We're going to give them a little bit of room. Notice there's just dirt in the middle. All those roots are gathering around the outside. So I'm not hurting the plant by digging in the middle here. Tuck that in there. Just a little more soil than what I got in there. All right, next, I'm gonna plant this really fun one here. This one is called the Queen of Hearts, this color. This is a wave type of petunia. Again, I wanna get rid of any discolored leaves, because if they discolor and turn yellow like that, they're not coming back from that. They're just gonna end up staying yellow. So we wanna get rid of that, because those are just leaves that are gonna die off. Now, in the hanging basket demonstration that we did, if you happen to have seen that, I demonstrated that when one of these is spent, it will dry up and it will fall off on its own, but it does leave behind these little kind of seed pod things that form in here, just to clean it up a little bit and make it a little lighter weight to the branch. If you have time, I like to clean those off. But again, it's not necessary for the plant to grow. It will somewhat deadhead itself. But I'm going to clean these off right now because I'm getting ready to plant it, so I don't want any of them that are about ready to be spent. These are getting ready to die off. That's why they're only halfway open there. And so I'm just going to clean those all off. I'm cutting back to previous growth, so you can't even tell that I cut anything off of this. You just tuck it all the way back to where those leaves are hidden underneath there. And see, it just cleans that all up, gets it ready to go in there. So again, I've got those roots going on there, so I'm going to want to loosen those up as I'm planting them. But as I'm looking at the shape of this, I'm going to ask myself, okay, how is this going to look the best? Is it going to look good for me to plant it like that? Probably not, because I got this long thing going out here, unless I'm going to cut it off. And this is coming into my inner plant. So it makes more sense for me to turn it this way because that's the shape of the plant. So I'm either going to want to go this way or the opposite, like that. Okay? So whichever way. But so it's nice to kind of look at your plant and say, okay, how is this going to fit in here the best way? So I'm loosening up my roots while I'm talking here. I'm going to get this tucked in here. And we might still trim this after we get it planted, just to see where things are at, but for right now we're just going to let it be exactly the way it is. Now I'm going to put one on the opposite side, and I'm going to clean this one up.
Yeah, you're right.
So there are a lot more sun-loving plants than there are for shade. Unfortunately, when it comes to shade, there are not a lot of flowering plants that like the shade. A lot of them like to have at least a little bit of sun. So you are a little more limited to what you can plant in shade than in sun. Some popular shade plants are going to be like your tuberous begonias, New Guinea impatiens, Turina. There's a really pretty blue, or it also comes in white, Brawlia, that is for shade, fuchsias, and coleus. There's some foliage plants that grow well in the shade, but not a lot of them that flower. So wax begonias can go in the shade, and regular impatiens too. So, but when it comes to sun-loving plants, there are so many plants now, and with the different plant genetic things that they've done, they come up with so many cool ones, especially like the Crazy Tunia series. I mean, some of them will have like 5 or 6 different colors in the same petunia flower. It's amazing what they've done and the things that they come out with every year. So it makes it so that we can really make some really creative combinations and looks, which can be kind of exciting to do something new each year. So I think I've got this cleaned up pretty good now. I'm gonna work my roots over a little bit here with my fingers. I'm gonna tuck this one in. Also, I'm kind of watching it as I'm putting it in here to see which way and which direction I want it all going. So this is where we're at so far. Now, just looking at it so far, I have a feeling I'm gonna end up wanting to do something with this little straggler sticking out here in the end, but we'll see how it looks after I get the other plants in there with it. So I'm gonna wait to trim it until we get all done. So the next one I'm going to put in here is this Capello Hello Yellow, and it's a beautiful yellow. Does kind of scream, hello, I am here, right? It's nice and bright. I found that a lot of times adding a little bit of yellow or a little bit of white in an arrangement really makes it kind of pop. So here in the end here, I've had where this got broken off somehow here, and so now I've got this stick sticking out here. Not gonna look the most attractive. So I'm just gonna cut that down to where the leaves were, and see, now you can't even see it. It just kind of hides it in there. So nobody knows that that was even cut off. There was another one right there. So I'm just gonna kind of trim it up a little bit as I go. Clean off some of those old seed pods there from some spent flowers where they were. Get rid of some little dead petals that kind of were in there. And now we are ready to go.
I love this.
Gonna massage those roots a little bit. Gonna dig my hole here, pull the dirt from side to side, tuck it in here. Press on that dirt. You don't want to press on the plant itself. You want to press on the like dirt ball kind of system there, where it came out of the pot. Because if you press on the plant itself, you're liable to break something off or break it off completely. So you don't want to put the stress when you're pushing on it to put it inside the pot on the plant. You want to push on the dirt part that was in the pot that was around it. And that way you're not going to be stressing the plant. So now that I have this in here, I want to kind of tuck these together, kind of tuck them around one another so that they kind of fall inside of one another. So see, I just tucked that inside of there. I don't even have to cut that. I've just folded them inside of one another so they look like they just naturally grew that way. So instead of having everything all balled up and sticking every which way, you can just kind of gently move them in and around, and it'll kind of make it spread throughout and shoot out faster. Okay? I got one more to put in here. Try to clean it up quickly here. While I'm cleaning up these petunias, there are different types of, a lot of people like to call wave petunias. There's super petunias, cascadias, there's crazy petunias. Like, there's so many different names of them, but basically it's the type of petunia that spreads and gets really big. Now some of them will just kind of spread around and become a really big mound of petunias. They're usually at least 4 or 5 times bigger than what a regular bedding plant petunia would be. But some of the varieties specifically grow very long. Also, like some of the super petunias can get up to 4 feet long. So some of them get a little taller than others too. So it's always good to check your tags, because each color of super petunia grows slightly different than the other. And each type of petunia that are these wave type petunias is going to grow just a little bit different too. So lots of variety. I think when they do different things with the genetics of these, it alters its growth pattern. So I'm going to get this one tucked in on this other side here. And then I'll spin it around and we'll see if we need to trim anything. I'm just going to add a couple little tiny handfuls of soil here. Once I put this final one in here, I realized I need just a little bit more to just tuck a little dirt on top of that dirt ball there that was part of the pot. Don't need a lot. Let me turn this around so you can see what I'm doing here now. So I'm just kind of rearranging these in here a little bit, where I'm going to just tuck this in kind of around inside of this yellow one here, so it just kind of falls naturally that way and just blends. We're going to kind of do that over here a little bit, although it's kind of meeting up pretty good there. And actually it doesn't look like we're really going to have to adjust anything here. Just by kind of tucking everything in there, we didn't really have to trim anything else. So we have our tall one that's going to grow up in here. We have these that are going to grow together around the outside, and they're also going to trail down. So you get the best of both worlds here. You have an upright and a trailer. So this is our sun-loving one. So these are just a few tips that we decided to try to give you in planting, and we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.